Bitcoin offers to make you a superhero. And so take compound B, and what happens? You take $50 million, you buy Bitcoin with it, you have a $50 million business growing 60% a year. There's not a single company in Europe growing 60% a year.
Michael Saylor doesn't mince words. He lays out a stark reality for virtually every public company in the world. They are, in his view, slowly bleeding to death. For the past 100 years, companies have been capitalized on either euro or US dollar debt. Saylor argues that this fiat-based capital structure is a losing game. With inflation and low returns, the traditional capital an S&P 500 company holds is, after taxes, bleeding about 10% of its economic value every single year. Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space, and drop your comments and observations in the comment section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
I think it's gotten much easier over the last 12 months because now you've got the explicit endorsement of the President of the United States. You've got a White House crypto czar. You've got a public position that Bitcoin is a digital commodity. You've also got a public position that it's the only globally acknowledged digital commodity. So the big existential question has been, is it a commodity? Is it a security? And the conclusion of it being a commodity makes it 100x more powerful than a security. And then the second competitive question is there a competing digital commodity? And the answer is no. And we fought over that for 4 years, but now there's pretty much no fighting. As David Sachs has said, the White House acknowledges that this is a decentralized network, an asset without an issuer, it's special, and there's no second best, there's no other thing. And so I've said, if it's not going to zero, it's going to 1 million. The point really is every public company in the world is capitalized on euro debt or US dollar debt for 100 years. And now you have a commodity that's a scarcity that it's legal to capitalize a public company on. If you can capitalize a company on an asset that's appreciating 55% a year, and if the S&P is appreciating 12 or 13% a year, and if the after-tax return of euro debt, the euro 1-year rate was 200 basis points when I last checked, and SOFR's 400. So if you're capitalized on stuff that's got an after-tax yield of 2 to 3%, you're 10% less than the cost of capital. So ergo, every company in the world is capitalized on a capital asset that's bleeding 10% of their economic value every year. And this is the first time we've got one that is positively yielding. And we've only known that without debate. Truth is, what settled the debate? The SEC approving Bitcoin ETFs in January, followed by the embrace of Bitcoin by the Trump administration, followed by the designation that it is the unique digital commodity in the world by David Sachs in March. That's how long, plus followed by the accounting profession mandating fair value accounting, and the Secretary of the Treasury telling banks, and the banks, not just in the US, but by inference, every bank in the world is being directed to start banking Bitcoin. The people that embrace Bitcoin first are people who either felt that their path to success was blocked by the conventional world or the traditional world, or it was hopeless, or they're staring at a certain death. And so I think that the people that get it first, they're the teenagers, the 20-somethings. Every time I go to a conference full of wealthy people, it's always the sons of the billionaires who know me. Like, I'm just discovering some every day that have Bitcoin that I didn't even know about. I think that the inflection point was November 5th of last year. If you had to point to one, this entire industry was waiting to see whether the securities regulators would embrace it, whether the banking regulators would embrace it, whether the commodities regulators would embrace it. And I think we knew the answer. We knew we were going to win in 2020, but it was going to be a long, grinding battle of attrition to win, but we knew we were going to win. But I think after November 5th, it became like a landslide obvious. It's like, okay, the entire government flipped. The Senate's pro-Bitcoin, the House is pro-Bitcoin, the Cabinet is pro-Bitcoin. The head of the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, the healthcare, the Department of Health and Human Services, they're all pro-Bitcoin. All the financial regulators are pro-Bitcoin. And everybody else in the world, every other regulator takes their cues from the US. Even if they claim they don't, even the enemies of the US, the Russians, the Chinese, anybody that's deemed to be a political competitor, they still actually take their cues from the US. So if the US embraces this as a digital commodity, Hong Kong flips, China flips, Russia flips, everybody flips. And the dominoes are falling pretty rapidly for the past 6 months.
Saylor identifies November 5th of the previous year as the critical inflection point for the entire crypto industry. Prior to this date, the industry was locked in a grinding battle of attrition, waiting for regulatory approval and a clear signal from governments. After November 5th, he says, it was like a landslide. The entire U.S. government, from the Senate and House to the heads of major agencies like the NSA and CIA, became pro-Bitcoin.
I think that the European markets are catching fire. If you look at the results of Blockchain Group or Smarter Web Company or H100, there's just a lot of Bitcoin treasury companies popping up here. There's probably going to be one unicorn, or superstar in every single market that catches fire and grows 100% plus a year, or hyper growth. And then you'll see a dozen other that will follow it. And I think they will do it because the equity capital markets in Europe are moribund and the credit markets in Europe are weaker than the US, right? I mean, the US credit market is 4% interest or 4.20 for a 1-year bond, but in Europe it's like 2.20. So basically you're not getting any yield if you're a credit investor, and the equity's based upon growth, but all equities valued based upon future expectations of fiat cash flows. And if you're not growing fast, then the equity is going to be weak and illiquid. And the dirty secret is there's 50,000 public companies. The 500 greatest ones are in the S&P 500. Most of them are US based. And then of the 500, 493 of them are failing, and there's 7 that are winning. And so the dirty secret is, out of 50,000 companies, there's the number you can count on one hand or two hands at any given time that are winning, and everybody else is just trying to keep up, right? And how do you win? You need a digital monopoly, right? If you happen to have a digital monopoly and you can sell something to 1 billion people, then you're going to win. And that's what Meta is, and Google and Apple and Microsoft. They're all digital monopolies. They're more powerful than governments, right? And so now, if you're one of the 400 million private companies or one of the 50,000 not digital monopoly monster companies, how do you win? And the answer is you basically merge with a digital monopoly bolted onto your capital structures. You ever see that movie you ever see X-Men, where you see the Wolverine and he starts out as just a normal dude, and then they actually fill him with the adamantium and they give him indestructible exoskeleton, and that makes him the Wolverine? Well, Bitcoin is that. Like, you're this normal dude, and what you want to be is indestructible, super mortal, or superhuman. And I'm telling you, what you do is you basically infuse the capital structure of the company with digital energy or digital capital, and that turns you in, from a $10 million dying hotel company into an $8 billion monster, right? And and so I think it's a matter of time before people that realize, like, you can't fly, you don't have laser eyes, you're not indestructible, and Apple and Microsoft are. I think it's one of those things where at some point the company says, well, I'm not going to be Apple and Google, and I'm either going to be crushed to death or I'm going to be a superhero. And then Bitcoin comes along and Bitcoin offers to make you a superhero. And so take compound B, and what happens? You take $50 million, you buy Bitcoin with it, you have a $50 million business growing 60% a year. There's not a single company in Europe growing 60% a year, right? I don't think there's, well, not that I bet you if we look at all of the companies with a market cap of $1 billion or €1 billion or more in Europe, I would be shocked if there's one that's growing 60% a year. And yet every single company in Europe, if they simply recapitalized to Bitcoin, would be bolting on a company growing 60% a year to whatever size of their balance sheet is. And then once you've done that, the aha moment is now you can issue equity or credit instruments, recycle it back into Bitcoin, and grow 100% a year. And so it's like, do you want to be a mortal, destructible, or do you want to fly with laser eyes and be indestructible? And it's like, you have to take the compound B, and it may be a little bit scary. It is volatile and it's bubbling. Right? And it's orange. You have to drink the orange fluid. That Trump realizes that Bitcoin and the crypto industry in general is incredibly powerful politically and economically and technically, and he attributes a fair degree of his political success to the support of the entire community. So they're very enthusiastic. Every cabinet member is enthusiastic. The Trump administration's enthusiastic. They're going to harness it technically and economically, and that will progress. And I think, the Genius Act, the launch of of stable coins, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, all of those things are indicative. The U.S. went from grudging acceptance of Bitcoin, dragging their heels on everything else, and being fairly indifferent to the opportunity as of a year ago, to enthusiastic embrace of Bitcoin, enthusiastic embrace of all the digital assets industry, and they went to leading the industry, and now they're kind of in the driver's seat. They're probably the most progressive, and other countries are going to have to keep up.
The conventional path is no longer the only way. For the vast majority of companies, the 400 million private companies and the 50,000 public ones that aren't digital monopolies like Google or Meta, Bitcoin offers a path to survive and thrive. It offers them the chance to stop being a struggling mortal and become a superhero.